Thank you, councillors. So now we will move into deliberations. So we're just discussing the hearings that are in your meeting pack, not the recommendations at this stage, just the submissions in their raw format. Did anyone have any comment? I just, as we kick off, I just want to thank the people who did submit to this. It really helps us to inform what the public think, and we know there's not everyone's dog owners, so we appreciate those who do submit to help us form this bylaw. Any deliberations? Councillor McPhail?
Through your worship, just recognising the fact that West Gore is obviously a bit of an issue as far as no areas for dogs, and I think it's something we need to be aware of, because there must be a lot of people in West Gore that have dogs, so just one of the things I saw there.
Thank you, Councillor. Good point. Councillor Fraser?
Yeah, along those lines, you read through here and people question Dollarmore Park and these other parks, and I don't think it's absolutely clear why we don't allow dogs into those areas and when those decisions were made. So, because to me, I'd like to know the answer to both those questions.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Phillips?
Thank you, Your Worship. And like yourself, I'd like to thank the people that did forward submissions. And I like the part about the DNA, and I think we need to explore that a little bit further. And also, there was a submission about the events and why they can't have dogs unleashed to those events, and I think that's a viable question. And like Councillor McPhail, I asked the question about the availability of a dog park over the West Gore area, and I've done a little bit of a homework about that, so yeah, I'll just keep that one in mind and see that we've got somewhere in that area available.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor McKenzie?
I'd just like to add comment to Dollarmore Park, as in it would be good to have a clear reason why dogs are not allowed there if they're restrained on a lead. That would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? I think there's some really good comments about it's striking in these submissions the balance we're trying to keep between allowing enough space for people to be able to walk their dogs without inviting that poor behaviour around, leaving poop around, and making sure that we're doing the right things in terms of education as well. So I think that's really well canvassed in the submissions. If there is nothing further, then I will close deliberations. Cool, and we will move on to public forum. Jenny, are you behind? There we go. Did you want to come on up? Sit up here, or you can stand, either or, whichever one you'd like to. So you got 5 minutes, and then councillors, we have 5 minutes for questions. Take it away.
Good. Thank you. My name is Jenny. I am a local resident and dog owner, and I would like to recommend allowing dogs in more of the Gore parks and gardens. Dogs are an integral part of many families and provide companionship, exercise and mental health benefits to their owners. Allowing dogs in public parks and reserves around town enhances community life, encourages responsible pet ownership and promotes outdoor activity. Public spaces are meant to be enjoyed by all, and that includes people with their pets. With a lack of designated dog-friendly zones in West Gore especially, allowing dogs under control in public spaces should be allowed and actively encouraged. Safety concerns around dogs and owners who are less than responsible can be mitigated with stricter controls in these places. Removing access to public places will not stop irresponsible ownership or remove it from these designated areas, but only push it to occur elsewhere in the community if it's been enforced. It's only penalising the responsible owners. More waste disposal stations and imposed fines for non-compliance can help address cleanliness issues, which, from a dog owner who walks daily, is not happening so much inside of these prohibited areas, but more so on public streets and paths, where it seems to be at an all-time high currently. Public parks should be inclusive and welcoming for all. With the effort the council teams put into maintaining these spaces fantastically, I feel I should also be entitled to enjoy these spaces with my family as a whole, which includes my dog. I'd also like to ensure that the policy and its enforcement would not have an effect on the St. John's Therapy Pets programme that runs with pets inside school grounds and care homes. This just needs to be addressed to allow the programme to continue to flourish and attract pets that are fully vetted by an animal behaviour specialist before volunteering. I appreciate you listening to my feedback.
Thank you very much for that, Jenny. Councillors, questions? Councillor McKenzie.
Jenny, question for you. Would you agree that dogs should not be around kids' playgrounds, etc.?
If they're on leashes, I don't see why that would make any effect. I have children and my dog is under control. I don't see how that would make an effect. But I do get your point.
I'm a dog owner myself, and I see regulations there to keep dogs away from children's play areas, because personally I own a very big dog, very friendly dog, but some children may be frightened of the size of the dog. Not that they're showing any aggression at all, but I would, just your thoughts on the playground situation. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, well, actually, I take my dog into a school weekly, and she interacts with children who are afraid of pets as well, and we deal with that accordingly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other? Councillor Dixon?
Through you, Worship. I have a problem with people who are irresponsible and leave dog faces in children's parks and places like that. How would you see us mitigating that effect?
I don't know how, to be honest, but it's a little bit like shadow IT. When you stop people from doing something in a particular way using a piece of software, they will go and find a way around it. So the same with dogs. We're already prohibiting them from using the parks, but there's just more feces everywhere else in town. I can't even count how many encounters I come upon fresh daily on my walk to school every morning. It is absolutely disgusting, and it has only just increased exponentially since the uptake of pets during COVID.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Councillor Reid.
Not a question, but just a comment regarding the fact that if it's already around the streets, inviting them into reserves and parks may actually increase it there as well. That would be my only concern.
Well, I would just like to say that the reason that I would frequent them on my usual walk through school and my trip around Gore every morning would be to use the bins within those reserves and parks, because that's most of where they are placed.
Good point. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McPhail.
Thank you very much. Jenny, it's excellent. I agree completely with what you're saying. I think that one of the problems in our society is that the minority are dominating the majority in just about everything, and this is one of the things that I believe very passionately about. So I think it's a penalty we're paying because some people don't do the thing. And is that the right reason to stop everybody from doing things? That's my point of view. So thank you for your speech. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll be expressing views in the next part, but but fair point. Any further questions? Councillor Fraser.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Thanks, Jenny. I totally agree with everything you're saying. And that's why I asked before when, like, particularly Dollamore Park, but do you believe education or enforcement is the best way around it?
I don't think I'm qualified to speak to that. I would say education, and well, education is usually the best way forward, but it's not for everybody.
Thank you for that, because I'm more in the enforcement line.
Views will be expressed in the next part. Any further questions? I think we'll let you off the hook, Jenny. Thank you very much for coming in and presenting.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate it.
No worries.
Righto, back into the regionally scheduled program. Any conflicts of interest? There appear to be none. There are no reports for information today, so we'll go right into the reports for decisions. And we have the dog control bylaw and policy review. Would you like anyone to come up? Over there. Welcome Leon up. Leon, would you like to talk to this report at all?
Other than to say I'm going to be relying on some technical expertise from Francis, plus or minus Keith. Other than to say that I'll be relying on technical expertise from my colleagues, Parks and Dogs.
Thank you for that. Questions about the report? Now we're open to ask questions about everything. And then we'll get into opinions and we'll try and work through some of these recommendations and options. So questions at this time. Councillor Val.
Do staff members, I'm aware that when new people are starting the regulatory department, they get a warrant that enables them to do things, including litter. Does that warrant extend to things under the dog bylaw?
Just getting a microphone. When you're ready, Francis.
Through you, Your Worship. Warrants for animal control officers are separate to any other warrants that are issued to staff. So they're not issued to everybody, only those in those roles. So it is a separate warrant.
So as a supplementary, can I ask how many staff actually have the warrant under the dog control bylaw?
So there are 4 full-time staff and our 2 after-hours staff.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Your Worship. As was mentioned before about section 13.2 and 15.1, and I notice in the recommendation in section E that the Chief Executive is allowed to make minor edits. Would that be classed as a minor edit or a major one? Do we have to come back to the full council for that? If it was, say for argument's sake, in the next couple of 3 weeks or a month or so, that's actually enforced, would that be possible for a Chief Executive to make that change to put in the bylaw?
The recommendation does enable me to make the changes that are enacted today from your recommendations, but I'm not sure which particular change you're referring to.
Just the change that's gone to central government, the one that from the SPCA mentioned on the SPCA today.
So that particular one, sorry, through your worship, that particular one is mentioned as one of the options in the section on awareness of regulations, and should council members decide to take that option, then that change can be made using that clause.
Thank you for that, Leon. Yeah, so the recommendation is to change it, which then would happen if we go through that. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just seeking some clarification about point 5.3. No owner of any dog shall keep it on any property in any kennel other than a dwelling, any part of which is nearer than 1 metre to any boundary of the property. Seems a wee bit ambiguous. Can you
If I might, the subject matter for that particular clause is actually one of the councillors.
As the author of that clause, it's mirrored on a district plan provision. And I was trying to use plain English to say you should keep the dog a metre away from the boundary, and that's so people don't lean over the fence. I even played with the idea of how high should the fence be so people couldn't lean over, but had to put that one aside.
I do just feel it could be worded a little better and a little clearer.
Leon's taking a note. Maybe councillors could discuss outside of the meeting as well on wording. Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yes, that was mentioned as part of one of the submissions. Had actually mentioned that and had an idea about how to change that wording in the submission.
I'm sure staff can find that and implement that. It's all good. Any other questions? What I thought we might do if there's no more questions. Sorry, I just had one. Just on, we've talked a lot about the areas in West Gore. Has there been any preliminary work done in this area, or would this be a fresh piece of work that needs to be undertaken?
Through your worship, it'll be a fresh piece of work and will require a bit of, or quite a bit of consultation.
Thank you. Yep, Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Worship. I'll just, point 10.1 is this fouling in public places. It doesn't actually mention any sort of, what would be I would call an infringement if someone is caught. It just says you're not supposed to do it, but if there's no, I can't see where there would be, unless I've missed it, where there would be some sort of consequence if you're caught.
Frances looks like she's ready to answer.
Through you, Your Worship. Under the Act, there is an infringement, and I think it's $300. So there is an infringement offence. We usually give them a warning if we catch them, pick it up, but we can issue a $300 infringement notice.
So supplementary to that, how many infringements have we issued over the last 12 months?
None.
Thank you, Councillor. Fun line of questioning there. Any further questions? Appear to be none. What I might do, if everyone's... sorry, Councillor Stringer.
Through your worship, there's quite a variance around a lot of councils, really. So, I think we're probably very much in the middle in our approach. Yeah.
Did you hear that, Joe? Yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've found my notes, and that submitter was the Companion Animals New Zealand, Companion Animals New Zealand. They had actually written that about that submission about the ownership.
Thank you for that, Councillor. It's been noted. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Because everybody knows it, you can't tell me dog owners know that they shouldn't be picking up their dog's excrement. What costs would we look at for further education as opposed to enforcement? Because education's obviously not working at the moment.
We would need to go away and scope that further to come back to you with a reasoned response, I think, at this point.
Councillor Hovell.
Your Worship, I'm just wondering, for the sake of avoiding going around in circles on a whole lot of different topics, if we can break it down to what appear to be the two key issues. One is the dog excrement, and second, West Gore, and I'd say a third is actually the prohibited areas that I want to talk about. So possibly we could deal with each of those separately, please, starting with the dog faeces since it's come up.
Read my mind there, Councillor. What I was just holding off for questions, so if there's any more questions, otherwise we'll dive into that and I'll get a motion on the table so that we can open into a bit of debate. Is there any further questions for staff? Appear to be none. Okay, I will look for a mover that we receive the full set of submissions and that we note the 8 submissions were received. We note that one submitter wishes to be heard. And that we can do all of them. Let's put all of them forward, and then we can walk through amendments if we need to. So can I have a mover for those set of recommendations? Councillor Dixon, seconded by Councillor Phillips. Now we are into debate. So we will start off with the first topic, which is the lack of dog exercise areas in West Gore. Do we have? You want to just? Yep. No. I was going to just ask. Do we have any that are more in support of option A, going against the recommendation that is there?
Can I express it in these ways and speak first? That
you may.
Dog owners have a responsibility under Policy 5.4 of what's in the document. To actually exercise, to meet the exercise and welfare needs of their dogs. And I believe with a number of prohibited areas, particularly West Gore, we are actually frustrating people from doing that. And the plan clearly shows that West Gore is in a disadvantaged area. The policy says classification of public places should provide sufficient opportunities for owners to meet the exercise and welfare needs. Clearly, it's not sufficient in terms of our own policy. And I think it's important that something does come back to council. I've actually got an alternative to the motion, but if I can just sit back, please, and just get a bit of feedback from others as well.
Perfectly fine, Councillor. Just for clarification, so you are more in favour of option, but you're not thinking that we should do it today, because those are. I don't think staff are disputing that it needs to be looked at. I think that's pretty clear from the submissions and from what we've heard. It's just in terms of the time frame of what we would like.
Yeah, and it's more than just looking at it. I think we need to give a little bit of guidance about some of the areas, because Councillor Stringer raised the issue of what happens in other councils, and I think we need to possibly give some direction of where we think things should be going in Gore. Should we be sitting in the middle? You go to places like Dunedin and a number of their reserves and their cemeteries, you can take your dogs there, provided they're on a lead, whereas you're prohibited from doing that in Gore. So I've actually got some feelings in terms of where I think we should be sitting on where people should be allowed to take dogs, and I think it's important we give some feedback to staff on that, so they can go away and write something up and consult, etc.
Any other views around the table on just this topic at the moment? Councillor Fraser. We are on the lack of dog exercise areas in West Gore.
And I totally agree with what Councillor Vales was saying, because if you look at the Premier Park in Southland as Queen's Park, and you're allowed your dog in there, as long as you clean up after them. And part of the issue is, it's just my question before, we've had no enforcement on dog poo in this town, I would say, ever. And I'm not having to go at anybody in the staff, but it's just not something that's actually clicked up on the line. And my previous question is, when was that decision decided that the parks were going to be pushed away from dogs made, and why was that made? I would like to know the answer to that, because at the end of the day, we've got some very good parks and we've got some very responsible owners who will look after and pick up after they go. And I totally agree with this that the one dog park area we have is not actually that big either. And when it's wet, you don't really want to be in there. So we do need to look at expanding places, because Councillor Bell's right, we have a responsibility as dog owners to exercise our dogs.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Paul McPhail, and then on to Councillor McDonnell.
Through your worship, I'll agree with both Councillor Fraser and Havel. If we're looking at the areas we're talking about where the ratepayers are paying considerable money for those areas to be maintained when they can't take the dogs in there. So I think we need some answers to what regulations are and why, so that we can go back to the public, the ratepayers, and say that this is what the story is. But I think we do need to do something and act on it, definitely.
Making this a rule about parks, they're not allowed in parks. I guarantee now, if we uplift from here and go to Bannerman Park, there'll be 6 or 8 dogs in there now. What?
You have to walk your dog in Bannerman Park.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But or down at Hamilton Park, you're not supposed to have dogs running, and they'll be there. They'll be everywhere. Every time you go down to Hamilton Park, walk round the back on that track, there'll be dogs running.
You're allowed to walk them there as well. Dollamore Park might be a better example.
But
Can I just remind councillors to use your microphones, please, and speak one at a time, because we do get feedback from the public that they can't hear you when they're online.
They're all over the park down at, not just on there. The last time I was down there when the train was running, there were dogs all over Hamilton Park running around. People had those ball chuckers throwing them. Everywhere I seem to see dogs. Hyde Park would be another park where people have dogs running across from time to time. But so we need to have areas where the dogs run. If it's not easily enforceable, it just makes a real ass of the law. If you make a rule, it's got to be enforceable. And if it can't be enforced, it's no use making the rule.
Thank you, Councillor. I think are you going to agree or? Yeah, go for it, Councillor.
Just a quick comment. Donamore Park, the signage is very, very obvious. No dogs. But if you go in there will be dogs wandering around with families. Just that comment. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think we're all in agreement that there needs to be some work here. Councillor Havel, you said you had a slightly different recommendation. I'm just thinking we'll circle back when Amanda pops back in the room, or have you changed your mind?
Well, for West Gore, and that's all we're talking about at present, and what I'm looking at in the amendment actually relates more to the other prohibited issues. Thank you.
We can circle back at the end and add anything that we need to. Yeah, thank you. So all in agreement with option B for that one. That is good. Onto the removal of dog poop. Did we have any that are against the recommended option, which is to continue the education approach? Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. Obviously, it's not working, education, so I don't know what else we can do apart from putting up signs, but everywhere you seem to walk, there's dog excrement in the shrubs, on the paths, and I just don't think it's good enough, because there are too many irresponsible dog owners, and they are causing issues for people who are responsible. I believe that, and that's probably another reason why I wouldn't like to see dogs in reserves, is for the very same reason of those irresponsible dog owners who are not picking up their dog poop.
Just to clarify, so you'd be more in favour of option A and taking more of an enforcement approach rather than an education approach?
Yes, I would.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Richard McPhail.
Yes, just in support of Councillor Dixon there regarding education, and I think we discussed Bannerman Park there before, and our staff will be able to confirm how many stations or sites do we have that provide plastic bags for people within the community, because they're actually, I've seen them, I know they're there, you've got them under their noses, so yeah, I think education, it's almost, how many of them are around locations in Gores? There'll be one over, I think there's one at the East Gore walking zone, one at Bannerman. Where else are they?
I can't give you an exact location, but we did put more dog bag stations in. a few years ago we noticed there was an increase in dog excrement on footpaths, and we couldn't figure out why there was a sudden increase. And it was around about the time that supermarkets stopped providing plastic bags. So we installed, I think it was about 4 or 5, about 8 additional new ones in addition to what was already in place. And we tried to strategically place those near public bins so people could pick up their dog poo and be responsible enough to pop it in a bin. But we can certainly explore putting more bag stations around if that was something you would like us to look into further.
Thanks, Francis. Yeah, I can see that option B is obviously the recommended option that's there, but you get to a point with enforcement by compliance or compliance by enforcement. You've actually got to, we're handing it to them, and we've still got people that aren't picking up their dog poo around town. So whether the education is actually has to be done by a more compliance-related. In the speeding situation, if you continue to give warnings to people that are speeding, they will continue to speed. You actually need to do some more enforcement. So, I'd just sort of side with Councillor Dixon there that maybe continue an education approach. Will we be in the same situation in another couple of years?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stringer.
The change was around the supermarkets removing those bags. I was going to say we could look at going the green ways now and offering people the paper bags, but it probably doesn't work.
Thank you, Councillor. I saw a couple of hands. Councillor McKenzie?
Another comment and question as well. If you went down the enforcement road, which I'd kind of back, how the hell would you enforce it though? Because people are out walking their dogs in the evening, and the dodgy ones, they're just going to keep walking because nobody can see them. How would you enforce it? I don't see how. Thank you. That's my question.
Councillor Hovell.
We had another issue come up last year in relation to cats, and we were told that we shouldn't have a cat bylaw because it's difficult to enforce. I posed the question before about the number of people who had the warrant, and it was because the report that we received said there's one animal control officer, whereas there's 4 people or 5 that have the warrant. It is not like parking meters of going out and seeing if someone's put their money in. It is an avenue that is available as a last resort. I think what's wound us all up is that there's nothing in the bylaw or the policy that actually says education is the way council's going. It's a comment that's in the report saying from a practical point of view, we will be focusing on education. And I think that might have sent us down the wrong road a little bit. So the way the policy's worded does enable enforcement to take place. And there will be instances where we have people with warrants who are walking around who actually do see dogs defecating and it not being picked up, which gives them the option if they wish. It also gives council the option in terms of complaints that might come in from the public. Where education fails, at the end of the day, we need that regulatory approach. So I guess the message that I'm wanting to pass back to staff is, I hear your message. I don't expect you to be out there looking for dogs and trying to do something, but I want the council staff to actually have the tool available to them to take action if it's necessary, and the way that the bylaw is worded actually enables that to happen. And that's all I want to say on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion on this? Did you have anything you wanted to add to this topic in particular?
I think what Councillor Hovell is saying is correct. we could we could tell you that we could employ 2 more people and they could wander around looking for people, but the reality is that it's a really challenging behaviour to try and get on top of. Most people, if their dog is defecating in public, they'll typically, if there's someone there, they will do the right thing. So, like how much extra, we could spend a whole lot more rates money on this. I think as long as we've got the tools there to enforce it when we do see it, that's probably the key issue for us to attend to at this point.
Thank you for that, Debbie. Question that I had just on the option A, was any thought given to what the greater enforcement powers would be, or that was just listed as the option?
Primarily it was listed as the option, but it was also acknowledging that notwithstanding there are 4 or 5 people with warrants, we do have one active dog control person out there. And so it's not a case of having to give anybody additional power, it's the fact that we can't clone people.
So is there a feeling from the council to move away from option B to option A? And if there is feeling to move to option A, is there any suggestion of what those additional powers need to be? Or are we comfortable with the discussion that we've had? Because that'll feed back. I mean, I think staff and the public have heard us pretty clearly of what the opinions are around the table. But I don't know whether that means there needs to be an edit necessarily to the bylaw itself. Councillor Dixon.
Through you, Your Worship, I'm just wondering if the public are fully aware that they can be fined for not picking up their dog excrement, and is it a matter of putting out some signs in areas saying, look, you can be fined for this? It might just make more of the public aware.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Yes, I'm sure staff will take that on board if we go forward with option B, which is continue the education approach. I think it's also been noted about more bag disposals as well. So if there's options for that too, that can present us to it. Obviously, that might come with a cost, but I'm sure staff can come back to us with that as well. You can? Yep.
Sorry, I just want to clarify because it might not have been obvious. I think I might have assumed that you understood what I was talking about in my last point, but option A actually involves recruiting more staff. It doesn't actually involve, we already now have the power to enforce, so we can give someone an infringement, as Francis said earlier, if we catch someone and their dog defecating in public. But what option A is really suggesting is that we employ more staff so that we've got more people out there doing that enforcement. I'm just making sure that you all understand that that's the case.
Councillor Richard McPhail, then Councillor Paul McPhail.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, and thank you, CEO, for clarifying that. Obviously, situation that you've explained there, clearly I don't expect to have any more expenditure or any more increase in budgets, and would probably side on the fact that the education approach occurs. But I think we do need to, and as Councillor Dixon has said, we can prosecute, we can give someone an infringement for their animal's behaviour, even though we're not seeing it. Maybe it's one of those things that we do bring up somewhere along the line. But happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Paul McPhail.
Through your worship, I think it's more of a perception thing. I mean, I understand what you've got written here, but we're not asking for more staff. It's more the fact that we are going to go after people and we will find them, rather than educating them, saying, a smack on the hand with a wet bus ticket. If we went down the same track, we've just changed the parking bylaw and we've put the price of sitting in the disabled parks, change that, and you're notifying the people that you can't do that. Otherwise, if you just educate them, people just carry on. So I think it's more of a perception thing that we're trying to say we're going after people that aren't doing it right.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hovell.
I don't believe it's a case of option A or option B. We don't need them. The bylaw is clear. It gives councillors the power to take enforcement action if they need be. We don't need to introduce greater enforcement powers because they're there in the bylaw. We don't need to continue the education approach because that's part of the step-by-step you needed. So I guess what I'm pointing to is delete any reference to options A and B under the heading of removal of dog poop. I think we've discussed what is there and we don't need to do anything more.
Just checking our legal requirement to respond to the submissions because it is a submission. So implement signs with the dollar amount of fines. Is that happy as a recommendation? Because I think we have to respond to the submissions to make sure that people are, that people understand that we've heard and we've discussed about it, and come out with an outcome. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd absolutely like to see us do that, backing up Councillor Dixon's point that, you see that it's got to be leashed, and that's quite obvious. But can we not just add, $300 fine, if not in dog poop? Change the angle of the dog and what the dog's doing. He may be leashed, but he may be pooing where he shouldn't. And there's a $300 fine.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor. I'm sure, staff can come up with it. I'm thinking even maybe at the bag disposals as well, you could have signs too for people who, just are wandering past. Cool. We've got that noted down, so we might add that at the end. We'll move on, if everyone's okay, with to the desexing of unclaimed dogs prior to them being rehomed. Is there anyone in opposition of the recommended option, which is to not require desexing on unclaimed dogs at this time? We're all comfortable with it. Councillor Fraser?
I don't understand how it's not recommended as due diligence has not been undertaken. If we're rehoming a dog, we have control of that dog, then due diligence is our decision, is it not?
Through your worship, as I understand it, we hold the dog for a period of time. It then becomes effectively, and Francis will correct me on this, effectively ours. We haven't done the due diligence in as much as seeing how other councils deal with this particular issue and what processes they put in place. So thus the suggestion was allow us to go and do that because we've only just found out that that's a thing.
Thank you for that, Councillor. With that being said, I think we'll move on. It's pretty clear. Yep. Awareness on the pending regulations related to dog tethering. We've discussed that. Do we want any changes? Oh, sorry, Councillor Stringer. Did you have a comment on the last one?
Yeah.
Through your worship. That reference related to SPCA and I believe the companion animals submission, and for both of those examples they mentioned dogs who had roamed multiple times, so effectively repeat offenders, and ones who were unclaimed from various things. So the intent was that would be a judgment call for how many times, and that fits more with Francis, would be a judgment call for how many times a dog is found to be roaming before it's put into that basket.
Thank you for that. Did you want to add anything, Francis? You all good? Yep, go for it.
I will just say that we do, with repeat offenders, we do work really hard and encourage them to desex. Council does offer a discount on their registration fee. We do promote the SNAPS availability for people to get some discount from the SPCA in desexing their dogs. And we work closely with the local agency Forever Homes with rehoming dogs who D6 when they're rehomed. So we do our very best to encourage that is done. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Francis. Moving on to the dog tethering, I think we've discussed that change is being made. There's no objection to that. And last up was the refinement of the definition owner. There's only one option there, which is to refine it. So I think we're all comfortable there, and we're comfortable with how that's been refined. Perfect. That circles us back round. Is there any further comments on this? Councillor Hovell.
I want to talk about prohibited areas. And I think we've got way too many of them. And as part of the report that's coming back from staff, I actually want to see back to first principles. I do have a question over, it lists schools as prohibited areas, and I wonder whether legally under the bylaw we can actually have enforcement of government land that isn't council controlled land, and have the schools actually asked for it? Are they wanting to have dogs prohibited from schools? I would have thought that each school might have its own policy. We hear that dog goes along to school for training with children. The middle school here you can occasionally go past, and school areas are fenced off, in many cases the playground areas. And on one occasion there was a family with a small dog and the kids playing with the dog at the school, and it seemed a perfectly safe place to go. So I do wonder whether we can do that, and whether the school shouldn't actually have their own provisions and bespoke for each individual school. That's first up. Secondly, I do question really, I can understand why there's a need to have controls from dogs not on a lead in many of these reserves. Dunedin cemeteries, you're allowed a dog there on a leash. A number of reserves. The reserve management plans for DOC allow hunting dogs, and dogs in some cases if they're on a leash. So I guess what I'm wanting to see is, I think we need to go back to first principles in the way that we look at the areas that are excluding dogs. And I want to flag that I would hope that's something that can be done in a 3 to 4 month framework, so it comes back to us in July and August of next year, of this year, sorry, prior to the elections. And if need be, I'll draft up an amendment to do that. Thank you.
Would you like that as an amendment? I mean, staff have taken it on board and they're happy to report back. It's a decision of council whether you would like it as an official.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I do want to see as part of the motion that the staff are asked to report back, even if it is a progress report during this term of council. And that might be the simplest way of doing it. I think my expectations are probably similar to what some of the staff are.
Just getting something typed out for you.
I didn't bring my binoculars. Can it be made any bigger, please?
It's not coming up just yet. You weren't the mover or seconder, were you, Councillor Havel, on the original motion? No. So if you can move an amendment that, if you're happy to move that, in addition of F, that the council directs the chief executive to report back to council with options to amend prohibition on dogs in parks and reserves.
May I suggest that it actually refers to the areas of prohibition in the bylaw, because that then includes schools and other things.
Amend prohibition and areas?
Prohibition areas is what's referred to, I think.
Happy to move?
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Paul McPhail. So now we have the amendment. Do we have any disagreement on that amendment? Appears to be none. I will now put the amendment. All those in favour, please say aye. And against? Carried. Love the delay. So that is now the substantive motion. Do we have any further discussion on the motion as a whole? All happy? I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. And against? The motion is carried. Thank you very much, councillors, staff, members of the public, those who submitted. That was a really good discussion and good outcome.